Hello, everyone. My name is Kirill. Please take photos. This is my Twitter handle. If you like it, if you like the talk, you know what to do. So I'm going to do something kind of experimental today. So I often get like a lot of really cool people, and then they come and they say, okay, you have to use this super secret thing, which is not even in the docs. It works super cool. It does what you need. But it's very hard to understand, like, how do they learn all those things? Like, where is it even coming from? So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to do like a kind of live coding session. I have no idea how long it will be. So if it's too long, let me know. I think I have enough material for it to be too long. We're going to try and solve simple problem. And on the way, I'm going to pretend I forgot things I knew before, and then I'm going to search GitHub, maybe Google something, go to Angular docs, and see how I can learn in the process. And hopefully we'll solve the thing in the end, or maybe it will be too long and we'll stop in the middle. All right? So this is Alfred Sisley. He wrote the previous picture, and I'll use his website as an example application. And then we're going to use tabs from Angular material. So here we have two Angular material tabs. This is the example website. The code goes here. It's just a regular Angular 4 application. I'm going to use, is the code too large, too small? OK, so if it's too small, just sit closer. So here we have a beautiful picture, and then we have a tab, which says to do. And then the interesting part starts if we're going to do something in this tab. Let's say we have a component which is called play terrible Russian pop music. OK, and actually, wait, I have to. OK, and then OK, I'll be nice and I'll just say like something like destroy my computer, right? Right. So just to make sure, we have the first tab with the picture displayed, right? So if I delete this for a second, the second tab is not even opened, right? So what happens if I put this component here is this, all right? And this is very bad. Alfred Sis is very upset about it. How do we fix this? Boom. So much better, right? All right, now how do we fix the code problem? Like what even happened here? I'm going to use a special component, which is I called app alert. And who knows what it will do? OK, it will just alert, OK. Boom, it says hello. So here's the interesting thing. We never switched to this to-do tab, but the component was instantiated. Why is that? Like, who thinks it's very intuitive and that's how it should be? It is not. Yeah, probably that's not how it should be. So the idea here is in this material tab component. And actually, let me go and check out the code of this tab component. Let's see what's going on there. So I'm going to GitHub, and then I'll be super naive here and just say mdTab. And boom, OK, so this is 115,000 code results. How do we make it less? So first thing we can say at Angular. So it actually looks like npm package name at Angular, but for a funny coincidence, what it does, it actually searches in the code of user Angular on GitHub. This is what GitHub does when it sees add character. So once we do this, it actually reduces the amount of results to 414. That's not bad, right? But if we look at languages, we only have 4 TypeScript results. And finally, our tab component is here. That's pretty cool. So here is the code, and then I'm just going to look quickly over it. We have some imports, and then that's interesting. So selector allows us actually to use mat-tab, not just md-tab. I'm actually going to go and check if it still works, right? So I have to change it here too. OK, boom. That works. That's pretty cool. And then what tabs do here is they're using something called content projection. And actually, I just realized it might be, let me see if it's in a tab. I think we have to look at the HTML of the tab to see what's going on there. And then this is ngContent, but for some reason, it is projected in a template. So what tabs do, they say every single thing you put inside of this tab, we're going to put them in a template. So at some point, I just deem myself confused, and I'll move on, because I don't understand why we won't just display it. But I'll assume it's something with this logic, like we have to show tabs sometimes, and sometimes we don't. But the idea here is every time Angular sees a component, it has to pass as content, it has to instantiate it. This is how it creates this instance of a class which it passes to the material tab. And this might be a problem, right? So just right now we show alert, maybe we'll have 10 tabs and each of them loads 20 megabytes of files, beautiful pictures or something else. And this is not behavior we would like to have. So what would be the solutions for that? And if you have like any ideas, suggestions, if I go too slow or too fast, just let me know. But any suggestions on how we can make Angular not instantiate this app alert? Okay. Use the template. Okay, so use the router. That's a good one. I'm going to get rid of alert for a second. Okay, so I'm going to use ngTemplate. At some point, it was called just template, and then there was some, actually, I'm not sure what happened, some naming collision with something, and then they call it ngTemplate. So now, if I put my app alert component here, there will be no alert, which is kind of cool, right? But then the problem is like, okay, there's no text too, right? That's only half of what we're trying to achieve. So what I'm going to do here is I'm being super naive, and what if we just use ngIf here, right? And once we dig deeper, we actually will see that ngIf is very, very similar to just using template. And then for now, I'll just say true. And then we get the message. But if I say false, we don't get the message. So we have to put something here which is true when tab is selected and false when the tab is not selected. So the most intuitive approach here is just to go to tab component and see if it has some property which says if it's selected or not. So where is my tab thing? So I'll make it larger. We do have template label content. OK, position. So this is pretty interesting. I would assume when I see position that the first tab will have position 0, the second tab will have position 1, and this is totally not the case for material tabs. So here, position is 0 when the tab is selected. So I'm a tab. If I'm selected, my position is 0. But then if this tab got selected, then my position is 1. And then the tab to the right is selected, my position is like -1. So this is position relative to the window of the tab. And this is how they do all the cool animation. So like once your position changes, you basically like animate and move to that or that direction. Right? So we're going to see and try and use that. So first of all, we have to get access to the tab, and we just give it a name. And I'll call it tab2. And then we say if tab2 position 0. Right. So this, in my world, this totally works. Let's see. Boom. OK. So we have alert when we need it, and we have the content. I'll open the terminal because I know there is a catch somewhere here. So we get this message. Expression has changed after it was checked. And this is scary. And just to explain how it works, in Angular 1, we have this change detection cycle. And we can watch variables. And for example, we have a property A, which depends on property B. So Angular 1 does change detection cycle. and it says, oh, property A is changed. So it displays different A in the template, but then, boom, this dependency fired, and in the same process, property B is updated. But then change detection cycle is over. So we have a weird situation where, yes, B is updated, but Angular doesn't know about it. So how do we fix that? And the way Angular 1 fixes it is going to run another change detection cycle. So it goes and it says, oh my God, B is changed. And then it sees if there are any watchers which react on B. And then, because I'm a great programmer, like C and D are changed. And then it goes over and over. And at some point, hopefully, it gets into a situation when nothing was changed. So we run change detection cycle, and like nothing depends on nothing, and everybody is happy. So sometimes, I think Angular 1 goes up to 10 times with this change detection cycle. And this was a cause of like many performance issues before, especially like for complex applications when there are like a bunch of fields depending on each other. And sometimes you get like infinite loops, so it could get pretty terrible. So the way Angular 2 solved it is like they do one change detection, and if you change something, that's your problem. Right? But Angular wants to be nice about it, because like a lot of people migrate from Angular 1 and they don't know how to, they don't understand what's going on. Why is their value not displayed? So what Angular 2 does, it has a courtesy change detection cycle in the development mode. So it does the first one, and then it does the second one and makes sure everything is fine. So in our case, like something is not fine. It says expression has changed after it was checked. Previous value false, current value true. So what we can infer here? I mean, I'm going to just go and see where this position is going to get updated. And because we have mdTab wrapped in the tab group, I would assume that this is parent component being involved. So I'm going to go and check out the tab group code. Luckily, we don't have to search it on GitHub just because it's in the same folder. And then if I search for position, okay, let's do dot position. So I can see that this is actually updated in ng after content checked callback, which is like literally like in the middle of change detection. Like you cannot get more in the middle than that. So it's a JIT. We understand that Angular is updating it in the middle of change detection. And what do we do with it though? And the simplest way, like what I would do here, if I need to ship it tomorrow, I'm going to go to my main TS file, and there should be a message. OK, so here's a message saying Angular is running in a development mode, which makes sense. Call enable prod mode to enable production mode. So I'm going to enable production mode and see if it works at all, right? So first I import it from Angular core. And I probably need curlies around it. And I'm going to just like run it. All right. So we ran it. Let's clear the console. Let's semicolon. Cool. So now we got the message, we got the text, and we got no errors. So everything works. We're kind of fine here. The problem is like that's not very nice solution, right? I'm not going to go to every single tab, and I'm not going to do this. So as an alternative way of doing this, I would love to have some kind of directive, my super directive, which, okay, maybe it's not the most semantic name, but basically this directive is going to look at the tab it's hanging on, and then it's going to either display or not display the content. But first of all, what is this star thing, and why did like up alert thing stop rendering at all? And this actually brings us to the templates. So this star directive, it's called structural directive, which is the topic of what I'm talking today. And what Angular does in the background, so Angular compiles the template, and then it sees, oh my God, there is a star. What do I do now? So, OK, I got the next slide. So then Angular has a process called desugaring. So every time it sees this star ngIf, it's going to turn it into ngTemplate. It's going to put whatever tag this ngIf is on inside of the template with all the content. So it's kind of interesting, right? So I'm going to check out how ngIf works first. See if I'm going to like re-implement ngIf and create a smart if. Let's see how it works. And then, okay, I go on GitHub. Oh no. And I search for ngIf, right? All right, who can guess how many thousands of results we'll get? All right, 600,000, right? Let's add that Angular. Okay, this is still a lot. So how about I do file name TypeScript, right? So in GitHub, you can say file name, I want all TypeScript files. And then once I search for it, this is better. And now we have all those type definition files, which would be nice to throw away because they definitely don't have any information we want. So I'm going to do minus file name. Oh, it's kind of unfair how you can see hints saying what I'm going to do next. But all right, so I'm going to get rid of DTS files. That's still a lot of files. And eventually I give up and just say, okay, so file name, it should have if. I assume that if directive will have if in the file name. And then it's loading. Okay, I don't know what's going on, but we do have ngIf.cs, all right? That's about. It's not about numbers. It's about okay. But okay, I found it. So let's check it out. So an interesting thing, it looks like a normal directive. It doesn't have anything like structural or it doesn't have any stars. Well, okay, in the comments it does, but like pretend there are no stars not in the comments, right? So it's just a regular directive. It has this selector of ngIf, and then if you go to the docs, we'll see this. So I'll pretend, just to make it faster, I pretend I go to the docs, and that's what I found. So all right, so is this a code we can use? Let's go check it out. Let's go to the previous slide, and then how about we say ngTemplate. And then we say hello inside. And then this template is not displayed, which makes sense. So ngTemplate is coming from HTML5 template, and it's basically a piece of HTML which has something which will not be treated as HTML unless we need to like manually take it out and make it HTML. So for example, if we put an image inside of a template tag in HTML5, image won't be downloading like all this information, which is neat. And then, so let's take a look. So we have to do ngIf here. And then look how we're not using the star syntax. We're going to just use square braces. And I'll say, okay, square brace ngIf true. And then boom, suddenly it appears. So without ngIf, it doesn't appear. And then with ngIf, it does. And look, like there are no stars, right? So all star does, it just takes this code and it creates a template with ngIf directive. And then ngIf knows nothing about stars. All it knows about is about the template. And then if we look at the constructor of ngIf, it actually takes two parameters. And the first one is called templateRef, which is actually a reference to the template. And just for kicks, I'm going to go back and I'm going to add the div. And I'm going to put ngIf in square braces. I mean, who wants to guess what happens? All right, no guesses? Okay, the whole thing gets broken, okay? And if we go in the console, and there is certainly a console error somewhere there, it's going to say no provider for templateRef. And what this means is our directive is trying to require this templateRef in the constructor, but there is no template. There is just like some random div. So to get this template, we have to do star. Which is kind of the idea. And then let's dig more into the code. So it takes template, but it also takes something called viewContainerRef. So what is viewContainerRef? It's basically, how about we debug it? Can we debug it? I have a fake, okay, we'll debug it later. But I'll tell you now, okay? So this is basically a comment. It's just a comment. And then it stores location of this ngIf template. So basically, the most important part of ngIf is happening here. We're taking the viewContainer, and we're calling a method called createEmbeddedView, and then we pass this templateRef, which is basically the same as this thing. Right? So this is what how ngIf works, and then this is how ngFor works. And then let me. So this is kind of more complicated, right? So we. Oh no. Okay, this is wrong ngFor. So if there was star ngFor, and it would have a track by, and it would have let something of something, it would desugar into this. So again, it is a template. It has an ngFor directive. It has ngFor of with heroes, where in the initial template it would be ngFor hero of heroes, right? So for me, this looks like super confusing, right? Besides the part that this is incorrect. Just generally, like, what are those a bunch of directives and where are they coming from? So apparently there is a thing called MicroSyntax, and then whatever you put inside of a structural directive has like nothing to do with like regular JavaScript. So here is a parsing definition for MicroSyntax. If this makes you confused, it makes me confused. That's okay. But if you look at it for some time, it has something cool. It has a thing called as, which I personally love a lot. So if we go back to, where is the thing? Let's say we have in our app component, we have a promise, right? Let's say value equals promise resolve. So how are we going to take this promise and how are we going to display it in a template? And actually what we want is this value. So one way we can say in the constructor val.then assign this value to some property. Like that's a long way. Angular provides us with something called async pipe. So we're going to, that's next to header, going to say val.async. And then we get the value here. So this is pretty nice. And often we get into a situation where maybe this value is not ready yet and we don't want to display it. Let's say if it returns an object with a property like a equals 1 to 3. If we just say, well, so we resolve this to a synchronous value, and then we get the a property, and it works now, but if it's really asynchronous, it will get an error, because initially we won't have this a value, which is an object. So we get in trouble. So the way we fix it, we say, all right, we use ngIf. And then we say, so if this value, and we keep it asynchronous, we output this value again. Right, so now hopefully, is there a typo? Yes. Thanks, Monaco. Okay. Okay. Let's see what the error is. You see, it's a real demo, right? It's actually me typing things. Okay. It says error. I don't know what's going on. Oh, I see. Okay, so in ngIf, we actually don't need curly braces. Right? So now we're going to have this async, and we get this a property, and this hopefully just works. That's kind of nice, but let's say we pull a user object, and this user has a name, last name, age, whatever, 600 properties. We're not going to go and like on every line go like val pipe async.name, then on the next line val.pipe async. Last name, whatever. That's too complicated. And then there is this fun as thing in MicroSyntax where we can just say as value. And then now we can use the result value right here. So we can say value.a. And once I get rid of this thing, boom. So this is pretty neat. And then if we look a bit more inside of the if thing, we see we get this templateRef. But then when we display it, we're displaying something called then templateRef. Right? That's confusing. So technically we should get this template which is inside of ngIf, but then for some reason if it's using something called then. So let's look at definition, and then here there is something called ngIfThen, and basically what it does, it sets the templateRef from the templateRef you're setting. And initially, it says that, OK, so if you get confused, the idea is as follows. You create ngIf, and if it has, it takes this template and it puts it at then template. And then if you have a then property on ngIf, then it's going to resolve it to another then template. And if it's super confusing, I'll just show you a demo. Right? So we have ngIf, and then this part, we're going to totally ignore it. And then we're going to say if, and I'll just say true just for kicks, right? And then we're going to say then. And then we have to pass some kind of template reference. So how do we create a template? We use ngTemplate, right? And then we give it a reference. So I'm going to put a here, and hopefully it will say test. Boom. That's pretty cool, right? So the kind of nice thing about it is sometimes you want to reuse something multiple times. So this is how I can reuse things multiple times, right? So I change test here once, and then it updates it here. But I mean, clearly this is like this seems smart, but it doesn't seem very efficient. And then I kind of assume that Angular has a better way of doing this. And since I'm pretending I don't know about it, I'm going to assume that Angular is going to use exactly the same. I mean, if there is a thing which works, so you take a template and you put it inside of your view reference, why not use it everywhere, right? So I'm just going to search this thing in the Angular repository. Okay, this is a tricky thing. Let's see if we can. Let's just search for create embedded view. All right, so there is a templateRef thing, which is implementation of the actual reference. There is some spec, which we don't care about. And then there is unless directive, which is not the real Angular directive, apparently just like somewhere in examples. And then finally, we get to the winner, this thing called ngTemplateOutlet. And if you look at it, this is just a directive. It does exactly what we expect. So if there is a viewRef, it removes it, and then it creates a new one out of the template, which is like exactly what we need. So I'm going to take this thing, and I'm going to start it. I'm going to pass a right there. And boom, it works. That's pretty cool. And then, again, we can have multiple things this way. Just for fun, I'm going to remove star, and my guess is it's going to say like template provider is not found. Let's see. Must provide. OK, that's a different error, but you kind of can get an idea. And then just to make sure we understand the structuring correctly, I'm going to try and rewrite the same thing using ngTemplate. And then I'm going to take this thing, move it here, and then we'll have to use a square brace binding. All right, so in my head, this actually should work if I remove the other thing. And boom, it works. So that's pretty cool. So we kind of deviated a little bit from what we were trying to do. We were trying to make sure like the thing don't get rendered in second tab and not get instantiated unless we actually need it. But now hopefully we understand structural directives better. I have more stuff. I know. Want to hear more stuff? Is it too long? Because I think I've been here for how long? 20, 30 minutes? All right. Who wants to go home? Go home, OK? Fixed.
You can't. We lock the doors.
No, those are unlocked. Well, maybe those are locked, but you can stay there and not listen to me, OK? So, directive, right? So I created a md hide me directive, and then I'm going to just re-implement ngIf directive. So it's called md hide me, and then I'm just going to put it on my tab2, right? Okay. So this clearly didn't work like I hoped it would work, right? So it's just removed the whole second tab, which is not what I was planning to do. So I'm clearly going to go and move to the content, and hopefully this will be better now. All right, that's kind of better. At least it doesn't show it. So if I say up alert, it won't alert it. So now we're going to figure out how to display it. And the first thing, we're going to just go and steal implementation from ngIf. And I'm going to search it quickly now when I know how to search for it. Quickly. So it takes viewContainerRef and it takes templateRef as a parameters, which is what I'm going to do. And I'll have to import them, and we import them from Angular core. And I'll pretend that I look it up in the if directive. All right. And then there is something called ngIfContext. So this is what was if you have as value, this is how it gets passed to the template. We're going to totally ignore it for now. And now let's do the magic. Let's do the viewTemplate thing. Oh, I'm looking at TabGroup. All right. So I'm going to create this create embedded view container. And then I pass the templateRef, and then I totally throw away the content. Okay, so this this already works, right? So now we have a structural directive. It displays what we need, but it does it all the time. So we need some kind of condition where we'll see, okay, we have to display it now, but we don't have to display it later. So what I'm going to do, I'll pretend I quickly went into TabGroup. And there is this nice observable called selected something. OK, this select change. OK, it is event emitter. So I'm going to take this event emitter from the TabGroup component. So if we look at our HTML, TabGroup component is here. So we're going to go to the parent component, and then we're going to look at it. And to do this, we have to require it. So what Angular allows us to do, in the constructor, we can specify the type of parent or grandparent or grand-grandparent or super parent component. And then Angular will just provide it to us like this. So I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to include. Okay, I'm going to disable the alert thing for a second. Next time, if I ever do this talk, there will be music playing or something, so it's fun and not distracting. Okay, so I'm going to require tabs, and the type would be mdTabGroup. And then we clearly have to import it. And then I'm going to import mdTab, because we'll need it later, and then I'm going to import it from Angular material. Oh no. So now we have access to the tabs component, and then let's import tab right away. So tab is of a type ngTab. Okay, so this miraculously works. And then we're going to use this beautiful observable. We're going to say tabs on select change subscribe, takes a tab, and then since we have two tabs. So once you select a tab, this event gets triggered, and then the selected tab gets passed. So we have parent tab, we have selected tab, we compare them together, and if it's the same tab, that's our tab. We're going to display things. So just because we have to compare them, I'm going to rename this one to parent tab. And then if parent tab, I'm going to do the magic. Right? All right, and then this should, I'll specify the type for it. So, oh no, okay, no, never mind. Okay, just to clarify, this environment is kind of a new thing I'm working on, so some types sometimes don't work. But check this out. Oh no, don't check. Okay. Oh yes, good idea. Okay, let's say hello, right? So let's make sure it works first. Nope, it doesn't. All right, let's debug it. Okay, so this never gets fired. Oh, now it gets fired. And then we have a tab. Oh, I see. So it doesn't pass a tab. It passes an mdTabChange event object. It has a tab and an index. So we're going to use something called destructuring. So what this thing does, and we need the parents around it, it's going to say, okay, I'm going to take a tab variable from it, just tab from this object, tab property, and then we can use it. So now hopefully if I get rid of the debugger, boom, this works. But now let's confirm that it doesn't do any alerts when it shouldn't be doing them. Okay, that looks pretty good. So we already have this thing kind of working. Now the problem is if we go and move this md hide me thing to the first tab, there is no value. And why is this? This is because this event never gets fired for the initial value. So what we have to do, we have to find some kind of how it's called, hook lifecycle event, where we can access tabs component, see which tab is selected, and then either display or not display it. Right? So I mean, I actually have no idea which one it is, so I'm going to use on ngInit. I'll quickly look at the tab group, and there is a selected tab index, selected index. Actually, we can check the tab position. So if the tab position is 0, then we're going to display it. Right? So I'm going to say console log this.tab position. And then in order to access it, we have to mark it as private here. So once you give it access modifier, it starts to become accessible as this.parent tab across the class, which is a cool TypeScript feature. So once we did this, let's see if it console logs something. I think it's ng on init, right? All right, so it's null now. That's not very helpful. Let's try another one. Ng after viewInit. Okay, boom, we got. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's like probably a proper way of doing this, but this is how I do it every day. And then, so this works. So now we're going to just say display it, right? If this position is 0, going to display it. It says templateRef. Okay, so we don't have access to templateRef, so we have to mark it as private. And then we say this.templateRef. Okay, so it almost works, okay? So it works here, but then the fun things happens, right? Which is, I mean, it's never too bad to have many beautiful pictures. But that's probably not what my manager will say, right? So how do we get rid of it? So here, when we display it, we say if parent tab equals our tab, then we'll show it. But otherwise, we're going to say this .viewContainer.clear. And now let's see if it works. Boom. That's perfect. So now we get those nice directives, and they kind of work, which is nice. The proper solution, did Daniel leave already? All right, so like Daniel said before leaving, he already knew the proper solution is to use mdTabNavBar, which is a special component in Angular material. So what it does, it actually uses router. So we have, in the module, we have router configuration. And then here, for one path, we show tab component. For another path, we show alert component. And it basically it just works like expected. However, we learned something today, right? Thanks, everybody.